All right, hey, what's up, everybody? Mike Lindsley back with you. I am here at Cafe Bing Cicero. This place is amazing. I just ordered up my favorite thing on the menu. It is the specialty, the Mike Lindsley specialty, the chai, and it is absolutely delicious. You got to get here if you're in and around Central New York. It's right in the Aldi Plaza, right by Anytime Fitness, Cam's Pizza, all over Central New York. You can not beat this place in terms of coffee, in terms of pricing, in terms of quality of pastries. Make sure you get here if you're in and around the area. It's right next to CNS High School. So make sure you get here for all of your delicious chais, your iced coffees, all the pastries and more. Cafe Bing Cicero here and all over Facebook and Instagram as well. Derek Sanderson Jeter right now is pegged, according to MLB Network and many reports all over the national media and New York media. He is pegged right now to be the second unanimous player to go into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Last year it was Mariano Rivera, and I know a lot of people have issues with this, with Derek Jeter, in terms of him. Oh, he's overrated, and he wasn't great defensively, and he's not a great sabermetric guy. He's not a great analytical player. And how can you get 100% of the votes when Willie Mays didn't, when Babe Ruth didn't, when Hank Aaron didn't, when Ty Cobb didn't, when Lou Gehrig didn't, when Stan Musial didn't, when Frank Robinson didn't, when Tom Seaver and all the other players in the past didn't? It's not Derek Sanderson Jeter's problem. It's the problem of the voters from years gone by. It doesn't make him overrated if he gets 100%. It makes the voters of years ago stupid for not giving it to all those players before Derek Jeter. But what I wanted to get into on this video more than anything is I really think Derek Jeter was the perfect baseball player. I am serious right now. When you think about what he did from the beginning of his career until the end of his career, 20 years in the sport of baseball, face of the New York Yankees, playing one of the three most important positions on the baseball field in terms of shortstop. He was the face of baseball, and yet he was probably not the best player in the game for more than a year or two his entire career. Now, a lot of people might come from the overrated camp and say, well, how can that possibly be? How can you be a face when you're not the best? I actually turn it the other way and think that that's even more of the powerful part of Derek Jeter, about how you don't have to be the LeBron James of your sport, the Tom Brady of your sport, the Sidney Crosby or Alexander Ovechkin of your sport to be the face of the sport. Derek Jeter was on the October stage all the time. He was the face of the most famous pro sports franchise in history, the most famous logo in the history of sports right here in terms of the New York Yankees. And when you talk about him playing in New York, he handled it perfectly. Now, sure, you might snooze during one of his post-game interviews, but Derek Jeter was handling things the right way. Word for word, he said just enough without going over the top and wasn't really totally silent and wasn't totally boring. He kind of met you in the middle. He answered what he had to do. He smirked along the way. He used some sarcasm. He was occasionally funny. He was never overly gregarious. He did just enough to handle the New York media, and there aren't many people who can do that. Remember, if you took Mickey Mantle in today's day and age and Babe Ruth with social media and the evolution of the internet, I think those guys would absolutely disappear. Derek Jeter came into the evolution of all that stuff. He came in as the internet was exploding. He came in as social media was being created, and he exited at the peak as far as now. I'm sure that social media will grow than what we've seen now, but he has grown with his career with social media. The peak of social media that we've seen was when Derek Jeter basically had just retired. This guy has handled it unbelievably well, class, dignity, leadership, you name it. And again, the face of the sport and the face of the New York Yankees. Those things aside, how about the fact that he was picked in the draft behind Chad Mottola? That's right. The Cincinnati Reds could have had a crack at Derek Jeter. In fact, in 1992, the Houston Astros and Hal Newhouser, he wanted him so bad because he said the only place Derek Jeter is going is Cooperstown. And when Houston didn't take Derek Jeter #1 overall, Hal Newhouser quit on the spot. That's how quickly he knew that Derek Jeter was going to be a stud and all-time player. Now we add to the fact that Derek Jeter, people would say, well, if he was picked by the Cincinnati Reds, well, he would have been just Barry Larkin. He would have never been Derek Jeter. Two things on that. Number one, if he was Barry Larkin, he would have been a minimum Hall of Famer. So that ain't bad in and of itself. And then number two, I just talked about the New York factor. Not a lot of people can handle New York. If you would flip roles, Derek Jeter in Cincinnati, Barry Larkin in New York, is Barry Larkin a Hall of Famer? I'm telling you, there aren't many people who could handle New York. Now, he was a perfect player in terms of what I just talked about handling things on the field, off the field, never in trouble. During the PED scandal, was a guy who was a clean player. Here's a guy who was the son of somebody who was a drug and alcohol counselor in terms of his dad, and he grew up in a household with his parents making their kids sign behavioral contracts. And finally, Derek Jeter, in terms of that specific topic, he always said he would never mess with the PED thing because you're just signing a deal with the devil. This guy was absolutely squeaky clean, tremendous career in terms of on and off the field and handling himself the right way. Now, on top of all that, we have the October and November glory. Everything from the flip plate and Mr. November to homering in Game 4, the first pitch of that World Series in the 2000 Classic between the Yankees and the Mets. The Mets had just taken momentum back in Game 3, and boom, Game 4, Derek Jeter steals the momentum back with a home run off Bobby Jones to center field. How about the flying leap play against the Boston Red Sox in 04, which I know led to the trade of Nomar Garciaparra and the Red Sox winning the World Series, but still, nonetheless, that's a classic extra inning game that the Yankees played, and an unbelievably infamous play for Derek Jeter to fly into the stands. In addition to that, you have the flip play I just mentioned. How about he went into the stands and caught the ball, the pop-up off the bat of Terrence Long. You look at the 2009 Yankee Stadium, the first year they win the World Series. The year before that, he closes out the old place with an epic, unbelievably historic speech. This guy also, from a production standpoint, numbers-wise, and here's where the overrated thing comes to absolute laughable levels. The sabermetric analytical people will say, he didn't really have the numbers. Gotcha. 6 all-time in hits, this guy. 5 rings, 7 pennants. He had 12 seasons of hitting 300 or better, and he had 8 seasons of 200 or more hits. He should have won at least one MVP. That season was 2006 when Justin Morneau won it. But really, Derek Jeter, even though the payroll was high in the Yankees, he basically carried the team throughout the season. They had offensive woes through and through. They couldn't get the ball into any kind of space, couldn't grade any kind of offensive momentum, and yet Derek Jeter kept plowing along, and he was the best player, not just in the American League. I thought he was the best player in baseball all year that year as well. The defensive metrics, some people say, not too good. He was extremely great at his position for at least the first 10 to 12 years of his career, charging in on balls. The Jeter jump throw, unbelievable tandems of double play partners with Alfonso Soriano or Chuck Knobloch or whoever you want to put over there at second base. And can we also add to the fact Derek Jeter's career WAR, 72.4 was his career WAR. He is the most productive shortstop and the best offensive shortstop since Honus Wagner, which is decades and decades and decades ago. The fact that people think that Derek Jeter shouldn't be unanimous, the fact that they think that he's overrated, it's absolute garbage in my opinion. This guy is one of the most decorated, greatest players in the history of baseball. I cannot think of a guy who's better in terms of being a unanimous player. I understand all the players before him who should have gotten it, but don't blame Derek Jeter for that. He deserves 100%. He deserves all the accolades. I know he's been a terrible owner of the Marlins so far. I know he fired Tony Perez and Andre Dawson. I know he fired a member of his staff who was fighting cancer. I know he's just been brutal in that role, but this is about the player Derek Jeter. Number 2, shortstop Derek Jeter, number 2. It's about him. It's about his 20 years in pinstripes. It's about 5 rings, 7 pennants, Mr. November off of Byung-Hyun Kim. It's about the homer off of Bobby Jones. It's about the flip play. It's about April 96 and the snow in Cleveland, starting his career with the over-the-shoulder catch, which was a remarkable play. It's about all of those things. And Derek Jeter, nobody did it better than him. Nobody handled it with more class than him, with dignity, with leadership, and of course in the PED era. And isn't it fitting that tonight we found out if he's the unanimous 100% Hall of Fame guy, as we are on another scandal in baseball with the Houston Astros cheating deal. We need Derek Jeter. We need more Derek Jeters. We need more number 2s. We need more faces of the game. This guy has handled it with class, dignity, leadership. The production is there. Number 6 all-time in hits, unbelievable. 5 rings, 7 pennants. He's my favorite athlete I've ever seen in my lifetime. He deserves to go in 100%. Tip of the cap, respect to Derek Sanderson Jeter. Hopefully 100% unanimous into the Hall of Fame. I'm Mike Lindsley. Again, get down here to Cafe Bing Cicero. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.